All right, so I'm back. I restarted everything really quickly. Just can't open from there. I'm gonna go ahead and get everything back opening, and you can see now it's saying build mesh distance fields. And it kind of does that on a per mesh basis, and there's some limitations to it. You can't non-uniformly scale assets and stuff like that. But it can be really great depending on the type of scene you're doing and what you want to use it on. And for some naturally lit stuff, it's going to help fill in a lot of those spaces. Yeah, you can see it. Let's see if I can find let's see, where's the buffer visualization? Oh, but it's going to pull in some of those darker spots, and just naturally do like a bit wider. It also can be useful for trees, although I may turn it off for the trees. We will see how everything goes. I definitely ran into some weird things when I was trying to do a camera push with it. Decrease the scale of some of this stuff, rotate it out. Remember, the nice thing is we can always go in and paint black and get some of those cliffs back out. If we wanted to have some of that there. I can see now that maybe this material, that maybe the normal strength is a little high. I like it. But I kind of wish I had it on the blend material, so I'm actually going to go in to the blend material and do something similar, where I'm going to say the base. Let's grab the component mask, gonna break this out, multiply. Base, normals, strength. And I could do this for all of them, but to save time, I'm just gonna do it for this one. I'm gonna have it default to 1. I'm gonna append in the blue channel back and plug it into there. And really, all of this stuff is just placeholder. I'm eventually gonna go in and tweak contrast settings. I haven't really touched exposure or fog or something like that. But I just wanted to remind you guys that it's cool because we have that option. We can go back in and we can make these kind of changes if we are so inclined. So this is kind of coming along. I'm starting to get a feel for where I want my camera to be, which is maybe something along here. Let's go back to models. There's gonna be some like rocks and stuff inside. One thing I love about this giant rock model is you can have it sit in terrain and it looks very natural. In terms of how everything kind of hits it. Move this guy down a little. I actually really like this idea of like a little rock lip. So I can kind of see some rounding that's happening. I'm wondering if it's the PN triangles that I selected, or if it's that on these smaller rocks I shouldn't have the displacement be so high. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to make a new version of the cliff. Cliff. 2. And I'm actually going to open up rock. It's small, tiny, and all these. Oh, I didn't do anything. Okay. I'm going to edit those. Grab the instance. Actually, delete the instance because it wasn't an instance. It was a duplicate of an instance. There we go. Mi cliff 02. And then I'm just going to go in and apply it to all of these rocks. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a little bit more control. It's all about, you know, when I make these tools, for me personally, it's all about control, so that I never have to face the same problem twice. I can solve it both times. So in this case, I'm going to drop the tessellation multiplier to be a little bit lower. It's going to help with perf. And then I'm going to just drop the displacement multiplier by quite a bit, actually. And I'm also going to tile the texture a little, so we have like a little bit of smaller scale interest. There's some cool stuff happening on that rock. Yeah, so saving again, always saving. Yeah, I just kind of like how. See, I like that side of the rock way better. Kind of slowly building stuff out. You know, I'm not super locked on any one idea or technique yet. One of the things I am going to start doing is starting to get bigger with my shapes as I go out to kind of save on time. I kind of know that I want there to be a big hill over here. I have decided that while I was grabbing a sip of water while the engine restarted. I think that's going to be really cool. Is having this like compositionally having stuff come in from the left. You know, having like a rocky outcropping up there, and then it's kind of hard to visualize because it's like the wrong composition. I think actually, yeah, why not? Put my world outliner down here for no apparent reason, so I can get a better aspect ratio closer to what I deem is, or what I think is going to be a better final render. So I kind of like this, and here's the great thing about Unreal. I can hit Control 1, and now if I hit 1, boom, just snaps back. Sorry for doing that a bunch of times. So now I'm starting to ask myself, well, what else in this scene needs to exist? What else needs to be part of this world to fill in the holes? And I am going to model, or I am going to build this level for that shot. You know, this could easily be built out with terrain and a bunch of other stuff, but I really like the basic idea. I'm also starting to not like the idea of like having a riverbed in there, so I'm going to go in, or not as flat of a riverbed, so I'm going to go in and add some tweaks. And this is terrain model 01, so I'm actually going to swap it with 02, because 02 is my little bit noisier one that I can make more organic kind of parts of the ground with. Maybe I went too far. Who knows? I'm just going to keep playing. Got my camera angle, so I'm happy. Actually going to straight up duplicate all this over. Because I need, and I want light to be, like, I want it to be, you know, as close to a full environment as I can get. Gonna slide this in. Really decrease that guy's size. I know I've got the UV scales are really weird are really large on that mesh over there, and that's okay for right now. Not only can I fix it later with that material, with a new material instance, again coming in super useful, but I can, if I need to, I can deal with it because it's not super close to the camera. So I'm a little annoyed with how some of these rocks are coming in. I think this concept of like these gentle sloping hills is just beautiful. I think it's going to come out really, really awesome. If I hit Control and tilde, I can switch between moving world and local space, but it doesn't seem to like doing it on scale. It's still a very, very useful trick to know. Yeah, get some of those rocks to appear. Starting to look pretty neat, if I do say so. I think more of this kind of detail over here is going to be nice. Get, something like that. Oop. So I accidentally hit Control 1 somewhere else, and I ruined my camera angle. Which I do all the time. I'm actually really bad about it. So, trying to fix. I wanted a little bit more terracing over on the right here. So, move that around and kind of keep playing with that. Nice thing about, building stuff like these rocks from the... Oh, I forgot to save my camera angle when I set the new camera angle. This is how I work. I just kind of accidentally forget to do really important things, and then I remember, and then I mess it up. Oh, and I did it again. Yeah, this is kind of gonna be awesome. I think in general I like that upper hill. Definitely saving as 3 different ones. 1, 2, 3. Something that I've noticed that sometimes happens is that normal maps tend to they tend to fade out if it's like a close-up detail normal map. So there can be a couple ways to approach that. It may be something we tackle in detail on Epic's terrains, like for their demo with their asset pack from their hills that they put out. What they did is they faded in a lower detail version of that terrain texture, which I thought was a really cool idea because it allowed for them to actually have like break up at that medium space without having to build it up themselves. And the far distance space, can be taken care of with World Machine or whatever is your program of choice for building those massive terrains, or maybe even just doing it by hand, which we may be doing in a bit. Because I actually do want to have some terrain present. I'm not a fan of the way this kind of folds into the rock. I'm just kind of watching for when I play stuff for things that feel unnatural. This is pretty cool. This is neat. This is coming along. So, looking at this scene, this is probably close to the midway point. What is working and what is not working, and what is going to benefit from stuff that is an eventuality. So, I think the composition is working quite nicely. I think getting getting in like this is great because you've got the light. Actually, like I'm gonna play with the lighting angle, but I know what's gonna happen because I've got this ledge here. As the light is because I want the light facing forward in this scene, at least forward at an angle, it's gonna create some really dynamic shadows from this raised rock ledge. But it's also going to create a little strip of light, and that means that we've got leading lines coming in from the environment. Something that I'll often do is I will absolutely draw and sketch and block out and doodle. I'm doing this a little, a little on the winged side, and that's great for this. But yeah, I absolutely do. Try to get in and mess with composition before it's a lot of work to do it. I'm just seeing like, if there was a higher rock up there, and how low do I want the camera angle? If like somewhere in here, but if it's in there, then I want this to be a little higher, which means I'm using the wrong terrain mesh. So I'm gonna grab a new one. Kind of make that a little bit more organic-y and rotate that down a little. One thing that I know I want is I want to benefit from all this work that I put in to get the tessellation stuff to look good. So when the time comes, I can just crank it and be like, hell yeah, this is going to be sweet. In fact, let's take a look at what that's going to look like, because it's important to know, because like I was starting to think of like medium shape detail for like these flattish looking grounds, and maybe when the tessellation's in, I may not actually want that. And it's certainly not carrying out very far. Even if I crank that really high, it's still only adding a little bit of information. And I'm gonna try, increasing the offset, which certainly it helps close up. And we're getting some cool stuff happening. Especially when there's grass and stuff covering all over this, but it's not quite what I'm hoping for. And it's going to be even more so because I know that the what's the word I'm looking for? I know that the UV scale is a little off on this material. Still, it's a little too big. We're seeing rocks at a little larger scale than I had originally intended. So, yeah, don't like it. Go back to my camera shot, looking at it unlit, seeing what those lines of detail are doing. Scale that down just a little bit, because I want, just kidding, that's the sky. I think this is pretty cool. So now comes an important time where it's time to think about foliage. It's time to think about extra space. It's time to think about how I want to finish building out some of these areas. And this is where I like having these terrain meshes, because they're huge. I can just go in and and this is where I'm happy that the UV scale is a little off, because it's adding in that distance detail that wasn't necessarily there before. It's going to allow me to grab some distant rocks and kind of plop them around. And oh man, this is looking awesome. That's exciting. I really like that rock from that angle. Force myself to use a different angle. Probably force myself to use a different piece of terrain too. Kind of keep these terrain shapes dynamic and interesting. I'm not afraid to use the same rock lots of times, because we've got the plenty of variation, and we've got interest in the material. We're also doing it for just a specific angle. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff that happens with this, I think. And this is large rock 01, so I'm going to get 02 in here. Certainly, it's a lot flatter, more of a rounder rock, but certainly make it interesting by just scaling it a little. It's gonna get like sticking out of some stuff, and we're starting to get some stuff that's pretty cool. In some areas where I want more detail. And as I start to move back, I'm going to start using the lower poly rocks, just to, to help with memory, or not memory, with performance. It's personal art, so it's not the end of the world if it's not, optimized to run at X console spec or X, X PC spec or whatever however you want to categorize it. But it is work related, right? And in the end, we are working in a real time engine. We should show that we can work intelligently within those real time engines. I mean, that is really starting to look good, and I actually am getting really attached to this. So I'm going to save this 3 side 1, 2, 3. And I may do, odds are I'll do a couple shots from this when it's all finished. There's still some lumpiness. I don't know how I feel about the lumpiness. Try to even it out. So, this is a really good part to say we've got like some medium interest in the environment. We have some large close-up interest. How are we gonna do the really distant stuff, and what are we gonna do with these trees? And what am I gonna do about this one spot right here that's bugging me? So there's a couple solutions, right? One is, using terrain from the start. And Unreal's terrain editor has come leaps and bounds since it came into existence. I'm really a big fan of what it is now. I've been on the side learning a lot of the World Machine pipeline, talking to the guys that make plugins for it, and just learning like what is really capable of using like an actual output. And I'm not going to worry about this for this project. That is, climbing into advanced type map stuff, and I'm not super concerned about it. I think right now I'm going to focus on the kind of direction that I'm going in with using these mesh assets, and I think I do want to use terrain, but I don't want to use terrain to replace this. I'm actually going to kind of hack it and put it around it. So the first thing I need to do is I need to make a terrain material, or I need to make a landscape material. And I'm really not going to be doing anything crazy with this one. Terrain layer. Layer. And nope. And there's a couple different ways to set up the terrain material. One is just doing it by hand and setting up what the blends do and bringing in each material. But there's a different way of doing it, which is using the layer weight. The layer weight is the way of doing it by hand, and then there is the layer blend, and this is great because you can just add materials. I mean, like I need these three, and so I'm going to just use three. I'm gonna copy the same textures that I had before. The point where I actually think I'm going to just copy from right from the blend material. And I'm not going to do roughness for this because I'm just doing distance stuff. So I'm going to go grab the normals. As we'll grab this too. And then the diffuse. Awesome, so I've got that. Close this out, go back to my landscape material, and I copied in all over the place. I'm going to keep the UV control. And there's the option for landscape coordinates, but I'll get to that in a sec. Okay, one sec. My computer is. I'm gonna go ahead and save because my computer is doing. Computer is freaking out a little bit. So with the material, with the layer material or the layer blend material node is set up to do is actually weight in any material in any order, and that's kind of the upside of this system is that there isn't a fixed layer like there is for vert blending. You can just keep on adding as many as you want, which is just great. So I'm going to go in and set this up first with the diffuse, and I actually want the base to be grass this time, and then I actually have to name these, so grass, rock, mud, and right now they're all set to weight blends. I'm going to set the preview weights to different amounts, and that's kind of just how much it appears in the little preview ball, but to show that it's all coming in and working. And then actually you can even set them to height weights. So I'm gonna set these to height blends, and that way when I paint them in, we just take advantage of the fact that I've got like a height map. So height mud. Oh, right. So it auto bumps everything down. So when I added the layer grass, now I have to add the height grass. Layer rock, layer mud, height mud. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing, but with the normals. So layer grass, and height grass, layer rock, height rock here. Disconnect all this stuff. Go back and fix that later, and then. Layer mud and height mud. Oh yeah, you can press Control and Alt to see documentation on stuff, which is super useful. Plug all that into normal. Here we go. I'm going to go and actually make my landscape. I'm going to save again. Can never save enough. So to make a landscape, go over to the landscape tab in the modes. That's going to give you a bunch of different options. I'm just going to leave it by default. I'm not really looking for anything super crazy. You can pick like the section size. I'm kind of torn. I'm going to go with this, but because I know where my camera is going to be, I'm actually going to move it to favor that direction. And then I'm going to drag it down and go landscape material. So I'm actually going to make a material instance of this. MI landscape, move this to instances. I'm going to do my paranoid check that it's recording. It is. And plug that in. Trying to figure out why it's not plugging in MI landscape. There we go. And it's actually picked up those 3 layers already, which is great. So I'm going to create, and it's going to compile all the shaders for it. While it does that, I'm going to play with this one piece of geo. Okay, there we go. We have a landscape. Oh. So, what is this landscape going to do for us? Well, it means we can actually build up some background for this image. And there are a bunch of really great tools. I'm going to talk about the different modes you can be in. So the manage mode is where you're looking at like clipping sections and looking at individual parts of the landscape. Sculpting is painting, sculpting is sculpting, where you're changing the size, and then there's different tools, flatten, smooth, ramp, erosion. We'll get into that later. And then there's painting. And painting lets you, there's no layer info. Oh, okay. So when you make a landscape, one of the things you have to set up is layer info for each weight, and so I'm going to actually go in and just going to create them into the default directory. But this is also where you would tie in if you were using like hooking up physical materials for like racing games and stuff like that. That's where you would be dealing with that. So I'm going in here and looking at actually I'm getting blinded by the exposure, so I'm gonna lock that to what it was. It's compiling all the different shaders as it tries to blend them in. I can blend in rock, and then I can also blend in. Oop, just kidding. It's got to think about it. It's got to blend in mud. So one of the reasons it is causing a little hissy fit with that black marking is it's trying to blend in something that isn't there at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can replicate it. Yeah, so it's happening where the rock is blended out. So the easiest way to fix that is to take the very base material and just set it as an alpha blend material. And the alpha blend material is like a hard, essentially hard blended in. And of course I'm gonna have to reset all this stuff, which is gonna be annoying. But it's closer to a traditional blend from here rock. There we go. 8 rock, 8 mud. Closer to like a vertex rule set, but it can, or like a vertex blended rule set, but it has to obey those base rules. So there's no like infinite blending, 12 different layers, which is the advantage of the layered system. But you want to have that as a base system because it's gonna help you get rid of those like, I don't know, I'm trying to blend in something that doesn't exist, which is what we're specifically trying to avoid. So I'm reconnecting all this stuff. I'm gonna apply. Hopefully this fixes it. Something you can do is you can actually import masks from files. So if you make something out of landscape or out of world machine, like a terrain mask, and you're looking to fill in a specific hole, you can do it that way. So I think I'm going to fill this whole thing with grass. So you see the grass is never applying, come on. Okay, it's thinking hard. Alright. I'm actually gonna import a mask for this. So I'm just gonna find an image. Because what I essentially have to do is I'd have to go in and paint in the right material below everything. So I'm gonna just import a flat texture from a file, which is almost black, but that should actually cover everything. But it's importing a mask, so like this is the equivalent of see, there we go. It filled in almost everything is black, or almost everything is grass. But because it didn't know, because the image I imported was essentially an almost black texture. Although there seems to be some problems. This version seems to have bugged out. Just fucking, excuse my language. Just gonna paint everything back in. Okay, there we go. So what I essentially did is I flooded that layer with a value. It doesn't matter what that value is, but now it knows that there is something there, and so now it has something to build upon